Hello and welcome to the Filmmaker's Playbook. My name is Jason Branagan and this is a podcast all about filmmaking. My guest this week is actor and filmmaker Baz Black. As an actor, Baz has starred in Brassic, Kin, Swing Bout and Dublin Crust, amongst others. As a writer, director and producer, he has made award-winning short films, but is most well known for his indie feature, Dublin Crust, which hit #1 on Amazon Prime in Ireland upon its release. Today, we discuss acting, indie filmmaking and the exceptional marketing campaign Baz led to ensure Dublin Crust found an audience, and much more. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Thank you for listening. Baz Black, welcome to the Filmmaker's Playbook. Thank you very much for joining me, man.
Thanks very much. Pleasure to be here.
We were talking before we went into record, but I didn't tell you this because I wanted to try catch you off guard a little bit. I remember you as a piercer working in Metamorphosis Temple Bar back in the day, and you pierced my nipples.
Wow. That definitely was not what I was expecting to start off this conversation. That was a long time ago. And that piercing hurts a lot, doesn't it?
An awful lot. And I was stupid enough to take it out and then go and get it done again.
Yeah, going through scar tissue, even worse again. So, but yeah, that must have been a long time ago. That was like
20-ish years, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say about 20 years. Yeah. So, wow, that's crazy. And the fact that you remember me, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It was a very memorable moment in my life because I was in a lot of pain.
Yes, yeah. Well, hopefully I was nice to you at least.
Absolutely, man.
Brilliant.
My follow-on is going to be how you went from that world and into filmmaking. Were you exploring filmmaking at that stage in your life, or was that something that kind of came subsequent?
Well, I actually started off with theatre when I was a kid. So that was my induction into it. And, you know, even at the time, I don't think I was aware, but my uncle still to this day is very synonymous with the theatre world, and my dad dabbled in it, and then my cousins, they were all very musical and theatrical as well. So I think organically I just ended up in that world, and then I moved away to predominantly with music. So I'm a drummer, so I was gigging with loads of bands, playing with loads of bands, and martial arts. So that's kind of what consumed my life. And then how it came back around to the acting world because of my image and my look. For anyone who doesn't know, heavily tattooed, I was asked to do a lot of like alternative modeling and be in music videos and that type of stuff. I'm notoriously quiet and shy in my real life, so something like that terrified me and I didn't want to do it, but I just kind of kept getting asked, and then it was a friend of a favor and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and I ended up doing it. And I had to kind of create a persona, because I remember a photographer stopped me in Temple Bar when I was working in Metamorphosis when I was a piercer, and he stopped me on my lunch break and he's like, "I'm a photographer, can I take a photo of you?" And I was like, "Yeah." So he took a photo, and I remember that photo being online at the time, and the comments underneath it were all pretty negative, but they were like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for this soul. He looks like he doesn't belong to this earth," or something like that. And the photo, you can see the kind of rabbit in the headlights fear in my eyes in that photo. So from that moment, I decided I would never show that vulnerability again. So when I went to the photo shoots or any of that, I kind of started developing this persona. So it was organically through that, and then eventually started being asked to be in short films. And so that's really where I came back around to it. And so that's about 22 years ago now, 23 years ago. And then I just built and built and built from there. And eventually then I'd say really like in the last 15 years, then it's been the road to taking it seriously.
First, people are shit. Fuck them.
Yeah.
I love that you were able to use that moment to turn that into something powerful though. So kudos.
Yeah, I suppose it was something powerful, but at the same time, now when I look back on it, I've let that go. I don't want comments or people to manipulate my life, so I was kind of acting in that persona, and I was afraid to show my true self. And that was for a good number of years while I was doing all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to the acting properly, I had to make sure that I got rid of that, because there's nothing worse than somebody putting on a persona, and you have to be open and authentic in the moment, in the scene. And if you're worried of what somebody else is thinking of you in that moment as an actor, you're completely in the wrong headspace, So it was kind of a retraining of my brain. But yeah, I like to think some positives came out of it, but at the same time, yeah, people are shit.
You said when you looked at that picture, you could see the rabbit in the headlights and the vulnerability in that moment, and then kind of ensuring that that wasn't what happened when you went to other shoots. And then obviously actors need to be incredibly vulnerable to perform truthfully, I think. So when you then began to act and act more regularly, what was that process like in terms of, I guess, shedding that persona? Did you go and train, or did you start to build your career and your toolkit just by being on sets and working with other actors and directors? What was the process like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It was being on set, hands on, and mainly because I didn't know any different. And again, when I look back, I mean, I would have absolutely loved to have gone and trained somewhere properly. But I suppose it was definitely just an organic thing, and one thing leading to another, and getting that process. And then so I'd kind of been out on the circuit for a good while, and I'd done some stuff, and some RTE shows, and bits and pieces and short films and a few feature films popping up. And then I eventually made the decision to go back to Bow Street, because every set that I was on, there was a lot of people that were on Bow Street, and it's great. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I should go get some formal training and just, to advance myself as much as possible. So that was definitely a turning point. And when I signed up to Bow Street, and I already had, a good bit on my CV, and Shimmy asked me, he was like, why now do you want to come back? And I was just completely honest in the moment. I just said, literally for the connections. And he was like, I appreciate your honesty, because that was really my drive and goal, was to, get in there, get the connections moving forward. But then when I was in there, there was so much that I took on board and so much that I learned. And it also was the start of me developing my script writing as well, which was a major tool. And Sarah Honan there, I credit her all the time, because she was the one that pushed me along in that avenue. I do look back on my self tapes, on my auditions and stuff before Bow Street, and they were so wild because I didn't know the rules, But I used to book loads of those jobs because I just literally, I didn't know the rules, so I was just fully, in the moment. And I kind of cringe at how mad they were. And then when I learned the fundamental rules, I had to actually kind of find a balance. It took me about a year then to go back to finding that authentic energy and not be consumed by, the quote unquote rules that you're meant to follow. So it took me a little bit of a transition period, so that's the kind of fine balance I think you have to find, and training is great, and absolutely everybody should train, but at the same time, you can't lose yourself in the training, so hope that makes sense.
Makes total sense. I think, and I've said it on this podcast a couple of times, I think that your currency as an actor or your currency as a director is that you're you. Only you will realize something in that particular way. So being able to figure out what that is. And I think that can take time as well, is super important to one, your career, and to whatever success you're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think life experience as well, backing all that up, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's just like getting out there and exploring the world, and coming from, working all the shitty jobs, and bringing all that experience to the roles, and everybody is different, but sometimes people get in formal training very early on, and they literally go from formal training onto set, but they haven't gone out and really experienced life. And I think a lot of the authenticity I'm bringing to characters is life experience as well, so, but everybody's path is different, so you can't judge it one way or another. But when I'm directing or when I'm acting, all I'm seeking for is the authenticity in the moment, and that's all. So once you can bring that, then that's fine. But any sense of acting or, pushing acting makes me cringe. as a director, or, you know, so I'm always just looking for that authenticity.
Yeah. When you think of Bow Street, you obviously mentioned it impacted your self-tapes and how you were going about that process. What were you surprised by when you got into that environment in terms of what you were learning, or maybe realizing what you didn't know prior to going in there?
Yeah, I suppose as well, like I was coming at it from a different angle where I had been out in the world and I had been on sets and stuff, you know. So it was kind of a 50-50 balance for me as well. And, you know, there was people in my class that had never acted, never been on a set, and they're coming at it from a different process. And a lot of it is it can be an interpretation as well, you know. And there was stuff in there that I was like, well, no, I probably wouldn't bring that to set. And then there was new stuff that I was learning that was like, oh, that's really interesting. And so I just think, you know, technically definitely made me more aware and better, you know, at opening yourself out as an actor as well. And just having the opportunity to try stuff, you know, and not that it was a test to see how good you were, but like to try some stuff out and an opportunity to see where you can go with stuff. And if it didn't work, then it wasn't like it was a failure. It was like, oh, well, this is open to try it. So I think a combination of all that. And one of the big things as well, like I just in general, I'm suffered like really bad with anxiety all my life. And so scripts used to terrify me, like, so learning scripts, and I have ADHD as well. So it was like, you know, my mind and it was when I had a class with Jerry Grenell, the amazing acting coach, and he just said one line that just kind of changed my whole perception, where it was like, just always remember you own the script doesn't own you. And it was kind of like just giving you permission to let it go of the ownership that the script had over me at the time, you know. And then I had to find, because script learning and script, you know, breakdowns can be taught a million different ways, and whoever's teaching you, they normally think that their way is the right way, you know. But everyone's brain is wired completely different, and especially mine with ADHD, and I'm really visual, so I had to find through trial and error how I can actually learn a script, and it took me years. And if you saw my scripts now, they're like scribblings of a madman. And I would never, even if I'm teaching workshops, I would never impart this wisdom as this is the way you should do it, because I know for a fact that it's just my crazy brain. So my process is very different. So just learning that that's okay, and there's not just one way to do it. Because I was, and I've done training in England and in LA and stuff like that, and it's great to explore other options of it, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for that person.
Definitely. I think it is such a personalized process. Same for every creative, right?
Yeah,
But actors in particular, I think, inhabit like a very particular space where there's not going to be one route that works for everyone by way of performance. Otherwise, everyone would do it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And then it's very frustrating for an actor if they're not getting it, but they're being taught that this is the way to do it. And they're like, well, why can't I learn it? Like, why can everyone else learn it and I can't learn it? And then it took me a long time to realize that just my brain works differently. So does everyone else's. So I love to give people loads of different options of try this and try this. And that's the only way I think you can do it, is through trial and error, you know. But people have picked up my scripts on set and just be like, what is this? Like, you know, because I'm so visual, and I'll have drawings and I'll have the way I mark it out, and, you know, loads of subtext. Like, I love subtext, and but it just looks like a crazy man's roadmap to lunacy, you know. But that's how I do it. So
Love it. And I love that. I just want to circle back to it and make sure I got it right. So what Jerry said was, you own the script doesn't own you.
yeah, yeah. And you know, I'm sure there was other people in that class where that line didn't resonate with them. He was just talking, you know, and but that just for some reason clicked with me, and it was just kind of like a revelation, which sounds so, it's, you know, just sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, but because I'd been stressing so much over it, and the proof was in the pudding. Well, because my first network show, Into the Badlands, that's how I was learning the script. I was obsessing over it. I was terrified of it. I was spending, you could be having a conversation with me and I was thinking of the script, trying to remember it, and it was completely like the script was owning me, you know. And then when I got to the set, I was, well, the worst thing happened with that was absolutely obsessing over it, which you shouldn't do. And I mean, the script learning, as you know, it boils down to understanding it. It's not learning the words, it's understanding what the words are telling you, you know. And but at that stage, I hadn't found my process. And 2 days before the shoot, they couldn't get a prop shipped over from America. So they sent me a new script. And that just sent me into a spiral. Like I was just, and then I was mixing up the old script with the new script. And I was absolutely, so by the time I got to set, and then there was like a 7 hour delay in my trailer, and I was doing the worst thing you could ever do, getting up in the mirror and fucking doing the lines, and you know, and then when they took me down and said introduced to Nick Frost and Daniel Wu, and it was like 150 extras, and again, it was like a rabbit in the headlights. I just was completely like unprepared, you know, so that was terrifying. And I actually went away from that set that day saying, if I ever felt like that again, I would never act again, because I didn't enjoy it at all. It was just terrifying, the whole thing. So I made a promise to myself that I would never feel that way again. And I do still get anxiety and stuff, but never to that extent that I've done. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that, man. I think that's a really important lesson and something that's important for people to hear, because that happens a lot. Scripts change. As you said, there's a downside to jumping in maybe too deep and obsessing initially. I think it's Meisner says, which I think is a really interesting quote on script for actors, which is script is your worst enemy. And I think he means it probably from a slightly different context than what Jerry was saying. But that idea of if you are overly beholden to it, in a sense, you will block yourself from being spontaneous or allowing yourself to just explore and live and see what happens when you're there with your scene partner.
That's exactly it. And I love that you said the only thing that blocks is yourself, because it literally is. Whether that's anxiety or how you approach the process, the only blocker is yourself. And I'm a big, big believer, and it took me a long, long, long time. And it's so easy to say it, but trusting your subconscious, like actually fully trusting it, that you can walk into your first scene on the first day up to your scene partner and it's Robert De Niro, and you trust your subconscious so much that your analytical brain is non-existent, and you do not have to think what your first line is. You do not have to say, okay, well, you know, here's the first line, I'm going to answer him. That you can trust your subconscious so much that you know the words, that when your mouth moves, that those words are going to flow out. And when there's anxiety, and when there's 100 crew staring at you and they're waiting to go on their lunch, and the pressure on the lights, and saying it now is very easy, but actually truly like trusting your subconscious. And that's taken me a long time to get to, that I can, for the most part, I don't always get there, but I'd say 80% now I can go in and I don't have to think about the words or the scene. And then that way, whatever comes out of my mouth is more natural or more authentic, which you would hope it would get to. But yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that point. And if you can get there as an actor with the freedom, and like Robert De Niro says, like acting is relaxing. Like literally, you look at him in his scenes, even if he's in an angry scene or violent scene, he's just always so relaxed. You know, he's never pushing it. And I think that's the key to getting there. But it took me a long time to realize that. And it's not like I'm saying I always get there. I always try to get there. You know, I have a word myself, and it's being comfortable enough with your subconscious that you're fully trusting it.
Yeah, I heard this Jonah Hill story from Wolf of Wall Street, and he was doing a scene, I can't remember which one it was, and Scorsese kept calling cut, we'll go again, did it a couple of times. Eventually Scorsese just sent everyone off and said to Jonah Hill, come over and sit down. Jonah Hill sat down beside him. Scorsese started reading the paper. Jonah Hill was like, what the fuck's going on? And I think just basically over time, they were there for way longer than he expected to be. And he realized, okay, I guess I'll just sit and wait. And because of that, he just relaxed. He was just sitting there, and Scorsese didn't give him a note. He just realized he's relaxed, he's ready, and said, okay, do you want to go again? Yeah, everyone back, boom, job done.
Yeah, I love that. And reverting back to the Into the Badlands, you know, I think it was like 6 or 7 hours on my trailer, something like that. You know, the AD kept coming back saying it'll be another hour. So every hour that passed, I was just, you know, by the time I walked out of the trailer, I was just completely like, I'm sure I looked white. But going from 7 hours procrastination to going down to one of the busiest, biggest sets, and literally it was like, we're behind time, Baz, there's your mark, okay, and camera in front, and we're going to go for one. So literally from 7 hours to 2 minutes, so that's the preparation side as an actor. And the first two takes, I know myself, were just absolutely shit. Like, the director obviously saw the struggle, which is the sign of a good director, and he took me aside and he was like, oh, look, I know they changed the script. I don't really like the changes of it. So just kind of loosely stick to what we were saying in the other one, but don't worry so much about the words. But again, it was like the Jerry thing. He just gave me permission. And when I did the third take, I did the lines exactly how they were written, but I was able to just let the pressure get off me, and I wasn't fixated on messing up the words, because that was my focus, was like, I don't want to waste everyone's time. I don't want to mess up the words. And then, Nick Frost came up after that take, and obviously he probably saw I was struggling in the first two. He came up and he was like, oh my God, man, that was so scary, or whatever he said. But again, it was just this little olive branch to give you enough confidence to get through it. So similar to the Scorsese thing, obviously the director probably just, saw it, and he did it in a very constructive way, because, yourself, actors, they're on the brink of collapse, and one negative word of that's not really how we want you to do it, and that's it, you're gone. Like, they say you have to have a thick skin, but actors, I find in general, it's their raw emotions are just sitting there at the level, and that can go one way or the other. So
Definitely. I think it's that thing again of when you are called to set and you're on, as you said, there could be 100 crew and other cast buzzing around, waiting on you to get a line. Everyone wants to go and break.
mm-hmm.
The vulnerable place to be in. There's no two ways about it. You're kind of walking a knife edge.
Exactly. And day player roles, they're the worst, because you're arriving into an established crew. They have their in jokes. They've been working with each other for the last 7 weeks. You're the newbie coming in, but the thing about it is, you're feeling all the pressure and the weight of that. But generally, the crew are just waiting for for their lunch, and the only reason they will notice you is if you're fucking up, because you're delaying their lunch, or obviously, the technical side of it, if the lighting isn't right, or you're not hitting your marks, or that kind of stuff. But I think day player world is way scarier than being a regular on anything, or starting at the start of a feature film, or short film, or whatever it may be. But a TV series, especially a network one, when you're walking into this massive established set, and you need to get in, deliver your one scene, it may be, and you have your 6 lines, and that's your job for the day. And if you fuck that up, you're going to look like the day player came in and wasted everybody's time. So it is learning that. And it took me years to try. I'm still not fully, I still go nervous. I still have anxiety, but I've just found ways and tools to deal with it a little bit more and acknowledge it and not fight the anxiety. That was a big thing for me as well. Now I'm just aware of it. It's who I am. It's how I deal with it. And then I try and just bring that to whatever the scene may be. It might necessarily not be the character needs to have anxiety, but you need to find a way to influence instead of trying to block it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to block it, it's like the enemy, where you're like, no, we're together here. We just use it, And then for me, it's always, once I get the first take out of the way, I'm fine. But I have to go through a process for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, beating myself up. And I've tried everything not to do that, but I just can't escape the anxiety, the build up. And then once you do the first scene, I'm always angry at myself. I'm like, fuck's sake, we just went through 4 weeks of torture and now you're fine. Like, why do you have to do this to yourself, But I mean, it's been 20 years and I still haven't found a full way to let that go. So
2 things I want to come back to there. You mentioned a little while ago just about the idea of the intellectual brain switching off and trusting the unconscious and your instinct, I suppose. And something I've had actors ask me about is this idea of, because there can be so much intellectual work you do on a script to understand the script, how do you throw it away, and how does that work then become embodied? And more I keep going back to music as an analogy here. And as a musician, I'd love to get your take on this, which is, if you're a musician, if you play guitar and you practice scales over and over and over again, as a drummer, I don't know if you're practicing paradiddles or whatever it may be, once you have all that foundational stuff done, you could pick up an instrument and play those scales without ever thinking about them. And it's the closest I've come to trying to think about how the intellectual work becomes embodied is the instrument kind of analogy, whereby, and muscle memory is a misnomer because muscles don't have memory. It's a brain memory that fires the muscles. So I think it works as an analogy, but I'd love to get your take on the embodiment process, I suppose, of the intellectual side of breaking this script down, understanding this script, as you mentioned, like, what's the subtext here? What's really going on?
It's a great question. I mean, and it's a super deep question, and I think it does go back to the individual, you know, and how their brain works and the wiring of their chemistry and stuff like that. And you know, even it goes back to me in school being always classed as a daydreamer, always no attention span, and you know, if I just applied myself, and you know, all the cliches, and for the most part, it was undiagnosed ADHD. And now that I've come to terms with that later in my life, my whole life makes sense because I just didn't know. I just thought that I was, you know, crazy, and I didn't understand. But anything analytical in school, I would absolutely shut down. And the other teachers couldn't understand because me and my English teacher, we had such a great bond, and he used to call me the director back then, and he saw my interest in the movie world, and he used to assign me separate assignments on movies because he knew that was the only thing to keep my interest. And when he'd be talking to the other teachers, and I'd be causing absolute mayhem because I was wild, like in school, fucking wild. But there was such a juxtaposition between when it was something creative, you know, getting in there. So that's always been my problem in my case. And when it comes to scripts, even though it's the arts, and I'm fascinated by movies since I was a kid, and it was the only thing that kept me quiet was movies. Like, I mean, it was just such an escapism for me and a burning passion. But even scripts in their form are analytical because they're written and they need to be learned, right? So when I was trying to do it that way, my whole body and brain was rebelling against that, because even though I loved it and I wanted to learn it, there was something in my brain to be like, I don't want to do this. Or I'm the type with my ADHD, whereas I'd read the script straight through, and then I realized that I wasn't even paying attention. I was thinking about, you know, going to the cinema later or whatever it is. So this is why then I had to find my process of it. And marking out the script visually for me is definitely my roadmap to it. And what I love to do as well is like a quick scan, and I will highlight the words that jump out to me that resonate with me. And it's not a thought process. It's literally like a really speed read. And then when I go back, I'm always fascinated to find that like 95% of the time, they are the important words that are there. And again, it's a real ADHD trait where you do that, you scan read, and you can read really fast, but you can retain information at the same time. So I find that like a really useful process for me when I'm breaking down. And then, you know, subtext, I love playing with subtext and what's in between the words. And then it starts resonating with me, you know. Like I was doing a movie recently out in America, and I'm basically playing a washed up actor, which is probably too true to life, but you know, I'm a bit of an arrogant asshole, but I show up and it's a premiere of my new movie, and basically if this movie doesn't work, my whole career is gone. And the owner of the cinema greets me, and one of the questions I ask is, so how many are we expecting for the premiere tonight? And then he replies whatever he replies. But the subtext work for me in between that was like, please fucking tell me it's sold out. Please fucking tell me it's sold out. Please fucking tell me it's sold out. So then that way I know my motivation, that I'm not just asking how many are we expecting for tonight. I want you to tell me that it's sold out to validate, you know, my existence. So subtext like that. And then as well, when scripts are written, not necessarily how you talk, it's a big blocker for actors, because you're going against your brain, how you would naturally talk. And you know, you can work with a writer director perhaps, and there is maybe some leeway, and like, oh, I would probably say it this way, but a lot of the time that's not the case. You know, it's like they're the words and you have to make it work. So I love writing in beside it, how I would say it. So if it's you're talking to your friend and it's like, in 30 minutes time, I shall go to the shop. Perchance, would you like to purchase something, right? So that's not how you talk. But then if I was saying that to my mate, I'd be like, listen, man, head in the shop. Do you want anything? And I write that beside it and I'm like, okay, so this is what's actually being said here. And then you have to say it the way, but now I understand what is being said. That's an abstract example of, but you know what I mean? If there's text that's, you're trying to understand it, I try to find a way of understanding it. So I hope that makes sense. And then it's just, when you do all the prep and you do all the work, you cannot have any of that in your brain when you are on set. You can't. You've done all the work. If you're actually analytically thinking of, oh, well, I like the way I said that, and yeah, I'm going to do this, and then I think I'm going to pick up the plate and I'm going to throw it at this point, and you do have actors and they have it all mapped out and they have it all planned out, and it just doesn't leave any room for organic authenticity. Or if you start predetermining what they're going to do in the scene, that's even worse, because it's written in the stage direction. Oh, they get angry and they throw a plate at the wall, and instead the other actor starts pissing themselves laughing in your face. And then if you're not able to adapt in the moment and treat that as you've never seen this before, then you're in big trouble. So again, it just takes practice and work, and not letting the instrument go dull when there is no work. It's a big one as well, because all of a sudden then you get called and it's like 2 days you're on set and you haven't acted in 3 months, 4 months. So it's keeping that going, and it's not always easy if there isn't work going at the moment, but it's having a toolkit that you can pluck out little bits and stuff that you've learned that you're comfortable with, that you can bring out on the day.
Love it. Thank you for all of that. I was then going to ask you about going from acting and kind of starting your career in that domain, moving into writing and directing, maybe specifically. You mentioned obviously script writing, kind of the beginnings of that being in Bow Street, but when was it that you decided to start directing? And then you'd been on a lot of sets, so did that feel like a natural progression, or did it feel like a leap or a learning curve?
Yeah, I mean, it was never the plan really at all. Whatever the plan is, I don't know what the plan is, but and going back again, I loved writing essays, and I won a lot of awards for essay awards and stuff like that. So it really interests me, and I used to just write stories anyway, constantly, even if they weren't for school or whatever. And I used to write radio shows for my friends, and so it was always that process in my brain anyway. And I wrote a book then, and I wrote that in like 2015, 2016. Again, never planned really on writing a book. It was a bucket list thing, but I wrote it, and the rights to that book ended up getting acquired then by a production company in Manchester. But it wasn't really then until I went to Bow Street, and in the scene work, and they were encouraging to explore different avenues of stuff. And I just asked, I was like, is it okay if we write our own scenes? And they were like, yeah. So I started writing them for myself, and then through that, other people in the classes started asking me to write them scenes for their scene work. And yeah, and then my whole script writing career nearly came to a grinding halt when somebody said to me, yeah, some people just shouldn't write their own scripts in front of a lot of people, and it absolutely crushed and crumbled me. And like I said, everyone's on the brink of collapse, and that for me, I was just like, I was mortified. I'm done. I felt like I was shit, and who am I to be writing scripts? And then it was Sarah Hone that I'd been writing scenes for her class, and she was like, why aren't you writing scenes anymore? And I was just like, and I told her, and she was just like, okay, you have to make a short film. And I was like, no, I can't write a short film, whatever. And so it was eventually then I did do that. And for me though, it was as an actor that I never got seen for any roles that weren't the drug dealer or the gangster, with the tattoos, and that's fine. Like I always say, don't worry about being stereotyped, be any type, so that's fine with me. But as a human and as an artist, you do have deeper levels and emotions that you want to portray and explore different characters. So my first short film was about male suicide, which is something that's very prevalent in my family and, you know, something very deep inside of me that I wanted to get out. And I play a very vulnerable character in that. So I wrote and directed it myself, and it ended up then doing like way better than it should have for what it was. And it just progressed on from there. Then I just kind of got the bug. And I suppose the moral of the story is, though, just that one comment almost prevented me from going forward, or so anything that I may have done in the last few years from that one comment, it could have all just ceased, you know. So but yeah, it was never really the career path. And now the path kind of led me down the directing and writing role more so than anything at the moment. And I'm a big believer in the universe just opens up these avenues, and you have to go with it, you know. So I love it. But just anything to do with the arts, I love it, absolutely. If I get to tell stories in whatever medium or whatever manner, I'm all there for it.
Great, man. Love it. I think it's an important point to maybe reiterate is that how people end up where they are often is as a result of saying yes to opportunities when they have them, as opposed to overtly trying to curate what they're doing. And when Emmett Scanlon was on, Emmett mentioned that moment in his career where he tried to over curate and it became more challenging. And he said, I just need to say yes to the work when it comes. Let's do it. And I think it's an important point because it's so easy to have an idea of what your career looks like or where you want to be. And it's important to hold that vision, but the path there may be different than what you think it is. So you've got to be open to it.
Yeah, I agree. If you try and control it, you're setting yourself up for major disappointment. There's enough disappointments as it is, you know, but if you're trying to, yeah, curate it and control it, it's a dangerous game to play because it's such an unstable industry as it stands, you know. And I'm a big believer in the butterfly effect as well. And it is like, I mean, I revert back to, you know, Jim Carrey movie Yes Man, and it's like saying yes and pushing yourself to do things that are a little bit out of your comfort zone. You never ever know what it will lead to. And just like a really quick example of that, quite recently this year, I had done a movie and I was invited to the rap party. But again, it was like a day player kind of a thing. And I was like, you know, nice of them to invite me. But it was, you know, it's 2 hour drive, and it was starting quite late and blah, blah, blah. But I was starting to get into a negative mindset, as in like, oh, I don't really want to go. And I kind of said to my wife, I was like, I don't think I'll go, and that. And then it was like 8 p.m. and I was like, no, do you know what? Stop. I need to go. I'll just go. So made myself go and drove there, and it was fine. It was great. You know, I had the chats, whatever. But I was doing an Irish goodbye, like I was doing an Irish exit. I was literally just gonna, you know, slip away, and it was like 10:30 at night. And but my jacket was on the bar, and I saw there was a woman leaning against it, and I was like, oh God, like I have really bad social anxiety. So something like asking someone to move for my jacket is like my worst nightmare. But anyway, I went over and I was like, oh, sorry, can I just get my jacket? And the woman happened to be one of the producers on the show. And she was like, oh, we watched the dailies, you know, and you're great. We love watching you, blah, blah, blah. So we ended up just having this big conversation. And then she called over her husband, who was also a producer, and he was a musician, and we just, and I mean, at this it turned into like, it was like 11:30 at night. We had this mad conversation. Long story short, she is now the producer of my next feature film through that conversation that we had. So if my jacket hadn't have been leaning against the bar and I hadn't have gone that night, I wouldn't have my next feature picked up by this production company. So there you go. There you go.
Okay, so when we're talking about features and we're talking about music, let's get on to Dublin Crust. So I kind of know, I know where that movie came from for you personally, from having heard you speak about the film and read articles about it. But I would love to maybe dig into the genesis of it in terms of at what point you thought, okay, this is the feature I want to make. This is where I want to, these are the cards I'm going to lay on the table. And what was it specifically about going, okay, Crust, Bonehead, this is the one?
Yeah, so like I'd done like 8 short films, and directed some music videos and bits and pieces and stuff like that. But Dublin Crust actually originated as a short film, so I wrote it as a short, but I was going to use the short as a proof of concept for the feature anyway. And then I applied for one of the funding grants for it, didn't get it, and I was basically like, oh, I tried, and I was just going to leave it. I wasn't even going to do it, and then it was my wife that was like, you need to just do this as a feature film. Like, forget about doing the short, and because it is based on roughly on my life being a punk drummer in bands. So that's kind of where the process of the feature started, and the short film had a rough concept that's in the feature film, but it's pretty much very different. And I was under no illusion how difficult making a feature film was going to be. I had no idea how it's going to do it, all that kind of stuff. But for my main focus was just writing the script and just trying to get the script ready and done. And they do say write about what you know, and I think that was always going to be my feature film because it's the closest thing that is to my actual life. And so yeah, just wrote the script and ended up getting it into the Dublin screenwriters competition or whatever it was, and through that I got to pitch it to 5 of the big production companies, and 3 of them came back and loved it, but they basically were like, well, you can't make it for less than $1 million. And I was like, cool, you're going to give me $1 million then? And they were like, no, you need to go get funding and then we'll come behind you. So then the application process started, as we all know in the industry, and just got rejected for all the big ones basically. But there was some of the smaller ones that we were kind of not in an egotistical way, but we were quietly confident that we were going to get it because we'd had meetings and all the indications were that we would get this money. And so by that stage we'd already locked in shooting dates and actors and locations and all that kind of stuff, and it was still going to be very micro budget, but we were counting on having this bit of money to do it. And then that got rejected, but we were already committed to doing it, so that's when everything changed. It was either we postpone it, we lose a lot of money that we've already invested into it, we risk not getting the actors, getting the locations, or we just suck it up and go. Because originally it was going to be a 6-week shoot, shot on a lovely RE, we had it all blocked out, and then everything just changed, and it was like, shit, okay, we'll adapt and overcome. And then, yeah, we ended up doing, I'm sure the whole thing in 7 days,
Yeah,
32 locations, 3 counties. Yeah, crazy.
it is crazy. And I think I may have saw 2 different budget amounts. Can you talk about the budget? How much did it cost you in the end?
Yeah. So like we're roughly in now for like 35 grand, but the actual making of it was probably closer between 15 and 20, like to actually just make it. So all the other stuff building up is the marketing, getting it to distribution, the cinema run, all that kind of stuff. So we're roughly about 35 grand. Yeah.
Hey, I was going to ask you initially whether you wrote the film for the budget and for the schedule in and around, but by the sounds of things, that isn't the case because you thought you were going to have longer. So when some of that other money fell through, did you have to go back to the script then and go, okay, I got to kill some darlings here. How do we do this in this many days and with this much money? What was that process like? Because it can be painful, but there can be a positive because it pairs everything back, makes it more of a character piece as opposed to it being maybe a bigger world or something. But I'd love to get your take on then what that process was like.
Good question. And perhaps in naivety or stubbornness or lack of understanding, I knew even with the change what we were up against, but it was something that stuck in my head. I watched an interview with an independent filmmaker, and he was saying psychologically a lot of lower budget, like micro budget, they do confine it to one kitchen or one location or one house, and as an audience then if you keep going back to the same kitchen 7 times in the movie, you start thinking, oh well, they don't have any money, so but they were like, if you can pump out the scenes and the locations, psychologically you're driving the story along with while you're watching it. So that was kind of something that was in my head. So we didn't really compromise too much on the locations and the scenes, even though it was turning into like a hectic schedule. And it is something that I wonder, I probably should have, because even as well, because I was the writer director, And what I'd learned from my shorts is I overwrote the script as well, that to give me options in the edit room. I didn't want to have to go back and do too many pickups because I knew cost-wise what that would entail. So there was, even scenes that we shot that I was kind of aware that we would drop a lot in the edit room. And we did that. We cut a lot of stuff out. So yeah, I mean, like just the pace of it, the scale, the budgeting, everything like that. I can't really remember if I went back and changed too much. There was some, as there always is with indie filmmaking's, locations and adapting and changing stuff, but there wasn't like I was getting the big red marker out and like paring it back to nothing. So what you see on the screen is pretty much the inception after about 30 drafts of the script originally.
Over how many years maybe were you working on that then as a feature script? Because you mentioned obviously there's lots of great funding avenues in Ireland, which is brilliant, but one, it's hard to get them. Two, they also move slowly. So yeah, I'm curious as to, I suppose, the writing and kind of pre-production period of the film looked like from ideation.
So we shot a concept trailer first, which is like 3.5 minutes, just to add to our sales pitch. And when we were getting in there, and we did a pitch deck that we get a lot of compliments on. We did a physical pitch deck, and we made it look like old punk gig posters, and the whole thing was a visual, a feast. And so we were doing everything that we could just to give us the edge. And I suppose that's where even the marketing side of the film is started right from the start. We were very adamant on what style the movie was going to be. But writing the script to inception, I see, I'm, again, ADHD, I'm terrible with dates and timelines, but as far as I remember, I started writing it maybe in September, and then we were shooting in March the next year. I think it was something along those scales. It wasn't a huge amount of time, but it was enough amount of time for us to get applications in and get rejected. And then to raise whatever money that we did raise for it, even though we were rejected for the big ones, we got product placement, we got some local arts funding, we did a GoFundMe, which I was very reluctant to do, and I will never do one again for as long as I live. And we got a few like executive producer, people that we know, very low amounts, and then everything else was just our own money, pretty much, So that's how we just scraped and scrimped. And then out of the 32 locations, we only actually paid for one or two of the one. And then we had to take out extra insurance for the courthouse scene, so all the locations. So that's the community getting behind you and making sure it's going to happen. And then even, the DOP, I was offering to rent the camera, but they were comfortable with their own camera. And so we rented the lenses and stuff like that. But it was just so set up, shoot, move along. It was, and probably to the detriment of the movie. And I absolutely cringe at elements of it and how it is, and but it's all a learning curve, and it is what it is, and I just have to accept that that's what it is. I would love to go back and reshoot the whole thing. I would love to change so many things, and in this industry, like, people are so critical, especially people in the industry. So for the most part, the general public, when they're watching it, they know it's a low budget feature all day long. Of course they do. But people who are in the industry, technically, they're going to be fucking completely distracted by all the stuff that's not in focus or whatever it may be, So, but for the general public, they seem to appreciate the rawness because it's a punk story. So we have a little bit of leeway in some cases there, yeah.
You obviously mentioned the number of locations, but you also have a massive cast, like 35 people or something in the film.
Yeah, 38. Yeah, 38 people. Yeah.
That's huge for you've more people than locations.
Yeah, it's crazy. And another thing as well that we are quite proud of, though, that everybody got paid, because again, in this industry, and I'm sure you've done it, I've done it, and still to this day, there is a lot of elements of people not getting paid, and it depends on the project and the budget, and if that's what it takes to get it over the line. There's a lot of people that take advantage of people, though, as well, But we were just adamant that everybody got paid, and it's something we are proud of going forward for a low budget, micro budget, independent film. And just the presumption is that nobody got paid on it. That's just a presumption that I've heard people or been asked about and stuff like that. So yeah, that was, and it kind of crippled us as well, especially when you don't have the funding or the money, but at least we can stand by it and say, well, people got paid for their time, and it is a massive cast. And for Eddie and Andy, the two members of the band of Crust, they never acted a day in their life. I was in a real band with those guys for 8 years. So when I asked them to do it, they were like, what are you thinking? Like, and it was such a big risk, asking them to step up to the plate to do it. But I'm really proud of those guys, what they did with it, and they're proud of themselves as well, because like Eddie was like, Baz, like, what do you want me to do? And I was like, Eddie, I want you to be yourself. And it's so funny, people who see the movie, they're like, oh my God, Eddie's such a good actor. And I was like, yeah, because he's not acting. That's Eddie, So, but yeah, so all those moving parts and dealing with 38 different personalities and, like the locations and the stress and indie filmmaking is adapting and overcoming and knowing how to, whatever situation you're dealt, whether that's with a person or with a location, that you're able to adapt your personality as a director and get the best out of the moment,
Definitely, man. And you all should be proud. In terms of directing it and leading it and co-producing it, how did you find, what was the process like then of directing from within scenes? How did you manage that?
Yeah, I'd done it before, like in my short films, and I think I have one of those brains where I can compartmentalize and I can switch in and out. And I have good friends who have tried to do that, direct it and be in it, and they were like, I'll never do that again. I can't do it again, because again, you kind of have to switch from your analytical brain a little bit, on the technical side, into I am this character and I need to let all that go. And you need to have trust in your crew that they're delivering what you want as a director while you're in the scene, because you can't, I think if there's any element of trying to control that environment, then you're not going to lend yourself to being authentically the character. At the same time, there was an awareness, I remember the DOP, and it was quite a heavy scene, and at the end of the scene, I said to him, I was like, oh, nice follow on that movement. And he was like, how the fuck did you like notice that? Because I'm still aware, and, I'm still fully in the scene, but I can still be aware of my surrounding, of what's going on. But like, Emma, my wife, obviously I trusted her, and she was keeping an eye on things as much as possible, but she was multitasking everything, and like she's super talented in areas, and even down to the editing, like, Emma edited it, and if you saw the raw footage to what it ended up being editing wise, like it's just, it's incredible. I love people to see what it was and what we got out of it, even if the quality is in the realm of things, But I was exhausted though, definitely mentally and physically. Like it honestly took me a good few months to recover afterwards. I was just, I mean, the rushes on the last day, you just see my face, and it's just like, I'm just like, just luckily we had a third AD to come in and like wrangle the extras for the big gig scene in the last day, because like my energy levels were just like, I don't think I would have been able to get the energy up to get what I needed out of the crowd, So yeah, I mean, I never want to make a movie like that again, the way that we did it, but learning curve wise, and my pitch these days is, look what we did with no money, imagine what we can do with some money, So it's like, yeah, so all those lessons was like my 4 years in film school in 7 days. Yeah.
It's a great way to learn, man. I made a movie many, many moons ago, which is a feature also all based around music. And we did it for, also crowdfunded. I think it was about 2,500, and did it back in like 2015. And we had a little bit of a festival run at the time, which was fine, but learned enough to know what I needed to know to move forward, which I think was the purpose and point of it.
Yeah, yeah. And same with me as well, and like I said, I've imposter syndrome all day long. I cringe at it, a lot of stuff in it, but at the same time, I think your job as a creative or a filmmaker or whatever, or your hope is to resonate with people in whatever way you can. So for me, even though it has shortcomings technically and all that kind of stuff, some of the reactions in the screenings of people bawling, crying, people pissing themselves laughing, or whatever reaction it may be, or coming up and picking out lines that you didn't think were the important line and be like, oh, my granny used to give me that flower, or whatever it was, So for me, I think that's the reward of it. on the creative side of it, but it's just so tough. There's so many moving parts. There's, just to anybody that makes it and gets it across the line, honestly and truly, my hat goes off to them. Like, even if the final product isn't great or isn't, whatever, and the failure rate to even getting it across the line or getting it out of pre-production, so many people will talk and talk and talk and talk about it. And those are the exact same people that will turn around and be like, oh, Dublin Crust was shit. I was like, well, you didn't get past the point of making it, So as another filmmaker, I would never turn around and say, well, that was shit. I'd be like, fair play to them. They got it made. They got it to a screen. But a lot of people don't understand that, and they just want to talk shit and pull other people down. You know yourself, and yeah, it's really, really ugly. And they're not working as a creative. They're working out of jealousy, and they're working out of, but you're going to get that regardless. There's nothing to stop that from happening. I suppose the important thing is the feedback that I've gotten about the movie from certain people. Now, at the same time, there's obviously been loads of negative stuff, and it absolutely kills your creativity and your joy and your spirit when you wake up and there's shitty things on IMDb and shitty reviews and people saying this and people saying that, and you want to justify, you want to say to them, oh, we no money and we made it, and that doesn't matter. The product is the product. You don't get a chance to defend that, so you can't defend it, but you just have to take it in. And it's really hurtful though, and anybody who says differently is lying, I think.
Yeah, I would imagine so as well. All of it hurts. It's like every no you get hurts. You just learn to manage it better, I think, the longer you go. One, I really like your current pitch being, look what we did with no money. Imagine what we can do with lots of money. Yeah.
Or some money, I say. I play it down, some money.
You mentioned it being kind of a big learning curve. So would you be able to maybe share a couple of the big challenges that you faced when you were making it and how you managed to overcome them?
Yeah, there was so many, and I talked about the adapting and overcoming. It's like, you plan and plan and plan. And for example, we had a car garage location, we had the insurance, we had everything signed off on it, and we had like 50 cast and crew on a Sunday afternoon waiting outside. 3 o'clock, nobody showed up. Ringing, phone, email, no reply. And 45 minutes goes by. So in those situations, either you crumble or you make a plan B and you just go for it. So luckily my brother owns a print shop in the same town. I just rang him. I was like, get me the keys now. He's like, for what? I was like, just get me the keys. And we moved the whole location and we set the whole car sales room up in his print offices. And then the car lot that you see in the movie with the for sale signs on cars, they were random people's parked cars that we stuck for sale signs on. And they were arriving back to their cars and we're like, for continuity, please just give us 10 minutes. Let us get the shot, But even though that was stressful and I was already exhausted and all that, if you let that feed through down into your crew and you show them that you're stressed and you're panicked and you're, what the fuck are we going to do? Whereas I was laughing. I was dying on the inside, but I was laughing. I was like, welcome to indie-filmmaking, and come on, we'll make it happen. And so I think like that's just one example of many, many things that happened. It was very guerrilla style, and anyone who shoots indie films, you're going to have to deal with that, and it's how you deal with that, and you can't be too locked into your decision making of it, and then there's stuff, and it's all hindsight. You go back, and just we didn't have a focus puller, for example, and that was such a big mistake, just not having it, because it just would have made the DOP's life so much easier, and it would have upped the quality, and even gaffing wise as well. And there's just so many little fundamental budget constraints that I would push the budget to make it happen now if I had done it. So these was all learning curves, and there's stuff that I will never go out and do another production without now. I'd be like, this is the level, and if we don't reach this level, then we're not going to make it. So yeah, there's so much, but I think if you don't look back and you don't kick yourself and you don't learn and you just think you have it nailed, and yeah, that's great. Like I think then you're in big, big trouble, So yeah, a million things what to do and what not to do. And then to be honest with you, the post-production, it wasn't post-production. It wasn't, oh, we're editing this film together. It was fixing. It was just fixing. You have no idea the amount of VFX that's in that movie, the amount of cuts, the amount, like, someday I wish I can just release what it was to what it is now, which is not, it's not the quality that I want it to be. But if you had seen what we had to fix to make stuff work, you just wouldn't believe it. Like, it's like, and that's why I'm not just saying it because she's my wife, but Emma and other editors and people who have seen the raw footage, they're like, how the fuck did you make this work? Like, it's literally micro splicing to make stuff together,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great story about the for sale signs on a bunch of people's part.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and everyone was pretty cool, They were, once they knew, what you were doing, and yeah, we just played the poor man's card all the way through, and but so many people in the community were so supportive with their locations, or we'll put your, and you were asking about the things change and stuff like that. For example, there's a coffee shop in there that let us use their coffee shop. It's like, okay, cool, we'll put your sign in it. So the scene changed then to, Bonehead meets Tracy outside the coffee shop. That wasn't in the script. We did that to get their sign in. So things change on the budget, on the locations as well, as they do with every movie, I'm sure.
You finished the film, hit the festival circuit. You have subsequently then, like, you drummed up lots of incredible press. You spent, was it 5 weeks in the cinema?
6 weeks, yeah.
In the cinema, which is incredible. I'd love to just look at all of that and maybe break it down into sections. And if we could start maybe with film festivals. So we hear a lot about film festival strategy and kind of planning your festival strategy. And while I do understand the ideology of it, but I still have it not cracked what this is or how we do it. And the more people I ask, I tend to get quite broad answers about, look, if you have a genre film, you're going to target genre festivals, but it can be difficult to find places to fit. So I was curious, you mentioned obviously the marketing starting with that trailer and with your deck and stuff early doors. Did you guys have a kind of festival strategy or a release strategy in mind early doors, or was it just get over the line and then figure out what we're going to do?
Yes and no, I suppose. So just on the festival side of things, like, I mean, I learned the hard, expensive mistake with my early short films where I thought the majority rule. So the more festivals I entered into, my odds of getting in would increase, which I'm sure mathematically that works, but you don't predetermine for nepotism being involved as well, So unfortunately, there is an element of that, and anybody who says differently is unfortunately a big fat liar. And so there's 100% that side of things, and I've seen it in meetings happening in real time, numerous times. Sometimes to a shocking. I'm just like, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad, Whereas, a phone call and your movie is in and they don't even check what the movie is, this kind of stuff. So the festival route for Dublin Crust, the majority of festivals that we went for, the majority, not all, were ones that I did have success with my short films previously. So they knew me. It was a track record. I wasn't just coming in cold. So that's really, I targeted them first. And then we had a few wild cards that we went for. But just getting to when we completed Dublin Crust and the edit was done, we had a big distribution company on board. With them behind us, we went for completion funding to get the absolute maximum quality that we could up to it in a post-production house to get it ready for the cinema. And we spent a full week putting in an application. And I'm not just saying it, but the executive producer and the production company, they were like, in all their years, they hadn't seen an application that was as strong, because we really went to town and we were like, we need to make sure we get this. And one of the clips from the movie had gone viral over 1 million times, and there was big buzz about it, and we'd already started the marketing. The distribution company they weren't saying, oh, so if we get it, we'll do this. They were like, okay, so when we get the completion fund, we'll do this, do this. So there was a whole strategy, including film festivals. So it was all mapped out. And then we just literally got a cold email saying thanks, but no thanks. And that was 3 months wasted waiting on that email when we could have actually been proactive and gotten the movie out there sooner. So then the distribution company got cold feet because they couldn't get distribution funding without the completion funding, blah, blah, blah. So again, it was one of those, took a day to wallow, and I was like, right, what are we going to do? And I was just, as always, just super cheeky and cut out middlemen and just went and made the deal myself. So, which led to us self-distributing in the cinemas and at the same time keeping the film festival route going. So because the festival circuit, just getting back to your question, was maybe 60% of festivals that we'd already dealt with. So we had good success there. And then out of the other 40%, maybe we got like a 10%, 15% yes on those ones. So I suppose that's where we came at it from. But it was really disappointing not getting the completion funding because it would have just gotten us in. So then the whole cinema thing and the whole marketing and the whole buzz is all self-created. So I just laugh. I have like, marketing experts on LinkedIn messaged me at the time being like, who is your marketing team? And I'm just like, yeah, that's 18 hours a day, buddy. It's like, yeah, so that's how we did it.
Okay, I love it. I was going to ask you about the press, because I've had two experiences, I think, really, of being able to source good press. One was working with a PR firm, and then the other was taking basically what I learned, because we were involved in writing the press releases anyway, and trying to write really good press releases. This was for a documentary that feature doc that screened at Galway in 2020 during COVID. Now, maybe we got lucky because quite niche, so we started grassroots, and that seemed to trickle its way up almost into national media the more it was picked up locally. But I'd love to pick your brain on, was it a case of spread a really wide net with the press releases that we're writing and the content we're sending out? Or again, was that something where you were like, okay, well, there's maybe I have a couple of pre-existing relationships from previous work, so let's target them first and then let those things land and then pick up what we can from those.
You're good. I'll give you, I'll give you that, because it is, yeah, it's like, so without in any way, shape or form an ego attached to it, but I have built up relationships with these media companies over years and years and years, because even in my different life as a piercer and stuff like that, I was kind of the unofficial spokesperson for the tattooed community in Ireland. So I ended up on these shows with, Katie Hopkins and Channel 4 shows and all this kind of stuff. And between my book and between my bands, and, so there's been 25 years there where this is the thing where I have a lot of filmmakers coming to me and being like, how did you get in Hot Press? And I was like, I was in Hot Press because Hot Press have reviewed my numerous bands over the years, and the Irish Independent, and all these things that we ended up getting in. So absolutely, I called in all the people that I'd already worked with, and then organically, when one was picked up, the other person, they'd kind of not get jealous, but they'd be like, why aren't you talking to us? So again, it was all because we couldn't afford a PR company, and it would have been amazing to have a PR company getting us into the the bigger things, but we just did it all ourselves. But there was definitely a track record there, and it was kind of the same when we did the cinema deal. Like, again, a lot of filmmakers are like, how did you do it? And I was like, well, it went directly to the source. But it's not just that I went directly to the source. They'd already seen all the press, all the work, all the viral, all the, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of filmmakers I talked to, they just think that they can skip all that steps and just go, I'm going to email them and I'm going to get into the cinema. It's like, it doesn't work like that if you don't have a big distribution company behind you that they trust and they work with, And then when I reached out, it was Omniplex first. It was like, oh, I've seen the buzz for this movie everywhere. Let me put you in touch with our booking agents. Had a meeting with them. And then it was like, okay, we're going to have a test screening. So we literally had a test screening for all of the suits. And that was just, I was in a puddle of sweat, like watching the movie with these suits. And even afterwards, they were like, oh yeah, it was great. But we didn't know whether it was going to be a yes or no. And then eventually that led to a yes. But then through us getting into Omniplex, it was Odeon reached out to us because they were like, why are you in Omniplex and you're not in our cinema? So again, just organically, that's what happened. And then Mayo Movie World picked it up. And there's no one straight answer to it, but all I can say is, without any bullshit, it was obsessive, constant 18 hours a day work. And I am not exaggerating when I say that I didn't sleep for months with that marketing, emails, building anything I could do to get it. Like, we literally rammed it down people's throats to the point of I was sick of myself. I was like, fucking hell, like, but whether you like the movie, you didn't see the movie, you didn't know it, you know about the movie. For the majority, social media, whatever, people know about the movie. They know the name, they know the movie. And I think in the indie world, a lot of people sit back and they don't bother their ass once they have the movie made, and they don't understand the amount of work you have to put in and answering everybody's questions and engaging with your audience and all the dog's body work that it's a pain because you're busy with everything else, but making them feel validated. If they went to the cinema and they commented underneath it, you better reply to them and thank them, because then they'll tell their friends, oh, go see this movie, So it was very organic.
One, I would absolutely believe that you were exhausted at the end of it and burnt out. There's something, I think, two things I would love to just circle back to. And one, again, is that kind of press idea. And I think it just goes to show the importance of relationships in not just this industry. They're super important in this industry, but in every fucking industry, whereby had you been a dick over those last 15 years and none of those people liked you, it does not matter that you had maybe had bands reviewed previously, So I think it's such an important part to just
Not
remember,
be a
like, to
dick.
don't be a dick. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, it's so simple, but like so important. And then as you're talking about the cinema release, again, it's just that the thing that strikes me is, one, it's a journey, and two, you gotta, like building a house or something, you gotta go brick by brick, you can't lay every brick all at once. One leads to the next one. This is a terrible analogy, but I hope it
No,
makes
it does,
sense.
absolutely, and it sounds really corny and cliche, but I do say it as well. Like, it's not even like networking. Going back to your first point there, it is building relationships, and those relationships can take 10, 15 years to come full circle and go around. And it goes back to, yeah, not being a dickhead on sets. And it's, especially in Ireland, it's way too small of an industry. Everybody knows everybody. And just treating everybody fairly, which you should do anyway. Actually, the hair stylist off Into the Badlands, which was 2015, 2016, whenever it was, contacted me on Instagram in 2022, working on a set, being like, they're looking for somebody with your look. Would I put you in touch with the producer? And I ended up booking the role. So, in those 7 years, I hadn't spoken to this person, but they still remember me. And, so you never know when they're going to pay off. And yeah, then with the cinema release, it's one thing getting it into the cinema, which is a childhood dream, and that for me, like, the cinema for me was definitely not anything to do with returns on money or profit or anything like that. It was getting your movie into a cinema screen. Even if it was one cinema screen, I wouldn't have cared. But then at the same time, if you do get it, and Omniplex have taken a chance on your independent movie and all that, you want to prove to them that they were right, because then going forward, you build this great relationship with them. And it's trial and error. It's week by week, as you know. And there's some massive Marvel movies that last 1 week and they're gone if they're not doing the numbers. So we were adamant that we were going to fill the screens for these guys and prove that they were right taking a chance with us. So that's when the tenacity came in, to getting on the radio stations wherever the cinema was, and trying to get on the TV stations, and hitting the social media and spending money on marketing, and really just trying to, because it's so hard to get people out to the cinemas for any movie these days. It doesn't matter if it's multi-million, with the accessibility of it at your home, staying at home, and the money and spending money on tickets. So you need to incentivize them. Why should they take a chance? Why should they hire a babysitter and spend 100 quid on their date night to go see your shitty little indie movie? And so that comes into the marketing. How can you sell it? How can you reach them? And the big thing for us, what I'll say is, and again, it nearly fucking killed us, but showing up for Q&As wherever they were screening. So whether it was Limerick or Cork or Galway, wherever it was, Belfast, and you pick a day and you start marketing it that the director and whoever from the cast is going to be here for a Q&A. But after they've seen the movie, the Q&A was such a chance then to pour your soul out and tell them it was only made with no money, 7 days and all that. And you just win them over. And then what we found was word of mouth. Oh, go give these guys a chance. They made this for no money, and it's actually like, it's quite funny, or it's decent, or they get on board with the story more. So that really helped us then, because then the next night you would see the ticket sales for the cinemas were way up, and they would comment and being like, oh, all my friends from college are going to go see it now. I told them this and told them that. And then every week that we got renewed with Omniplex, we were fucking delighted, because it shows that we were filling these tickets. And then we did National Cinema Day, and all the tickets are like €4, €5. Now they put that to us being like, do you want to do this? Because money wise, when they take their percentage out, it's money wise, it's nothing, you're not going to make any money on that day. But we sold out like 24 screens on that day. So, even though it was €4, we still sold out 24 screens. And then we used that as the marketing, be like, we fucking sold it out. And people are like, what's this movie? It's selling out. So you know what I mean? It's just week by week pushing, where can we push, and learning as you go, So I hope that explains it. I don't know.
Definitely. It's amazing. It's amazing. You achieved something incredible, because, and I think you're right, so many people, it's such a slog just to get over the line. I think a lot of people are like, whew, okay, we're done. And it's really only you're maybe at the midpoint, So,
because even handing it over to a distributor, you think, my job is done. Take it away, lads. And that's the big downfall, because distributor, who knows? Most of them don't do any marketing. Some will charge you for marketing and tell you that they're marketing, and they don't do any marketing, and it's your baby and it's your job. And I get it. A lot of filmmakers don't want to touch that side of it. I get it. They just want to make the movie, and they just want to do that side of it. But if you're in the indie world, like it or lump it, that's what in my opinion, you have to do. And you need to start early doors with the marketing. This whole concept of holding back and hiding your movie from people who don't know about your fucking movie, that baffles my mind. You're not Marvel. You're not trying to keep the new superhero under wraps. Nobody knows about your shitty indie movie. So shout it from the rooftops and start building the interest really early doors. And you can do that really cleverly. And that's what happened when we went to number one on Prime, right? And I definitely didn't think we were going to go to number one on Prime when we released. But we had built up such an anticipation over a year. So the people that didn't see it in the cinema, like, our inboxes and comments were so full with, when can we see this movie? Where can we see this movie? When can we see this movie? And it was this big boiling pot. And then literally it was like, okay, go watch the movie. With our distributor, basically with Amazon, it went on TVOD, transactional. So people had to pay to rent it. And basically they said, within the 9 months, if it does well enough on transactional, Amazon will consider putting you on their streaming site, right? So we're like, right, we have 9 months to push it. So we released on the Friday, and on the Saturday, I started my phone I was at a screening of a movie that I was in, and my screen, when I went outside, was blowing up with messages, and it's on streaming, it's on Prime, we can watch it. Because that was the other thing, nobody in Ireland can watch transactional. You can't pay to rent it in Ireland. So it needed to be on streaming for them to be able to watch it in Ireland. So we had an Irish movie and nobody in Ireland was able to watch it. You can't watch it in the UK. So my distributor rang and she was just like, what the hell is going on? They just put you on streaming, like, what is going on? And basically we crashed the site so hard that they literally overnight switched us over to streaming, because we just had this big boiling pot of people ready to go and watch it. So that's how we ended up then doing what we did on Prime,
It's amazing. There's so many incredible lessons there. I absolutely love that attitude. Thank you for sharing all that.
No problem. It's just punk. It's like, it's a punk movie and it's a punk way of doing things, but it's like, I just feel like it's the only way that we could have done what we did the way we did it. And any filmmaker that's planning on doing it and all, they just have to realize the amount of work that takes to get there. And then it's just opened so many doors. That's what that movie has done for me. It's just opened so many doors. Even though it nearly killed us, the payoff for me, more so than the amazing cinema and Prime and all that, is the fact that it's led to these other opportunities that I have now.
Speaking of those payoffs, my next question was going to be, did the film kind of shift the dial on your career and do what we all hope these films do, which is kick you into that next lane? Sounds like it did. Is there anything you're kind of able to talk about or that you can share by way of what the film has done? You mentioned earlier you have your next feature lined up with the producer from that other show.
Yeah, it definitely has, and in unexpected ways as well, because we speak we speak about imposter syndrome, and it's like going from a shitty no budget. I'm not being disparaging against the movie, but like, let's be honest, a shitty no budget, micro budget, belong together a movie to do what we did, to one of the projects that I can kind of loosely talk about, but I am directing, solely directing. I'm not in it, but I'm directing a massive biopic movie that's in the realms of 20 steps, up. It's proper big budget, proper big names, and it's a Formula One movie. I can say that. And it's a biopic about a Formula One racer. So that's been incredible, and that's kind of like my full-time job at the moment. So I'm in from development stage, and but that came solely off the back of Dublin Crust, because without getting into too much detail, but basically when I was approached about it, they had requested to see Dublin Crust through a casting director actually that I know. And I had no idea what this producer, why they wanted to watch Dublin Crust, but they watched it, apparently loved it, and they were looking for a character-based director. And when I eventually had a meeting, when I pitched it, my pitch was that the racing was secondary to the story, like it's a hero's journey, and I'm more interested in the character of this person. But apparently I was the only one who pitched it like that. Everybody else pitched it the other way around. They pitched it as a racing movie. And I'm like, yeah, the racing elements are important, but stylistically as well, how I want to shoot the racing. And, so I now know that's what won me the gig, But so I've been in London a lot, as there's so much developed. It's so huge. It's so overwhelmingly huge, like that I'm imposter syndrome all day long, but I just need to, like, break it down scene by scene, day by day. And I'm putting in so much work to it, and I have a great vision for it, but at the same time it's just so sprawlingly massive that it is a bit overwhelming. And then off the back of that, then I'm also directing a TV series for a massive network as well. And then I have my next feature film, which has been picked up, which is actually a psychological horror. It's completely different. The Dublin Crust is completely apart, and that's actually my passion project. I'm so excited to shoot that one, and I'm starring in that one and directing that one, but the others I'm just on directing duty. So yeah, that's kind of a vague answer, but directly from Dublin Crust, which I never in a million years anticipated it would do. To be honest with you, I was hoping that maybe just on the acting side of it, just with Bonehead or something, seeing me as something, the acting side I might get like one or two gigs off the back of it, but it's been the other way. It's been the directing side of it. So
It's class, man. It's great. And it's really well deserved, as I said, because one, the work you did on the film, but I think the work you did with the film after it was actually made as well. Like, who wouldn't want a director who cares that much about the work they're making?
yeah, well, thanks for that. And it is something that the producers have said. They said it's nice to work with a director who's actually passionate about the project, because there's so much bullshit in this industry. But like, I literally live and breathe this every day, like, minimum 8 to 10 hours a day. And I just give it my all. And of course, we all have shortcomings, and of course, we have weaknesses and stuff like that. But there's one thing about me is that I will always find a solution as best I can, just to make it work, and to and to work with the team and make sure everybody's feeling included. And but I'm literally living and breathing that movie since February. I've been on it since February, and the shoot plan is May next year. But it's literally every day, constantly, meetings back and forth and all that. I love it. It's great. But it's just, I have to catch myself from not being too overwhelmed with it, and it's great to have people like Dermot Goggins, who I know you had on, and we've taught workshops together, and I was on Kin, and that's how we first met him. But actually, with Dermot, this is why he's such an amazing person in this industry, because the Odeon premiere, I invited a lot of names, shall we say, or people that were prevalent in the industry and all that, and like, he was one of the only ones that bothered his ass to go to that premiere when he had no obligation to go. And he does that for everybody. He will write back to people. He'll go support them. Like, he's a true supporter of the industry. And it was through that then that we ended up, I'd already worked on Kin with him, and then we ended up teaching workshops together. But having someone like that, because he's dealt with such big TV shows, and being able to, vent to him, and it was him that was, just saying it, that literally just day by day, scene by scene, whatever you're working on, you can't get ahead of yourself, overwhelmingly thinking of the bigger picture. So yeah, look, it's amazing. And like I said, the universe, or the pathway, has opened down that road. It's not something that I ever thought would open, but I just have to go with it, and I have to work as hard as I can to make it a success all around, But I can't tell you, these big meetings I'm in, I'm like, who the fuck do I think I am? It's like that little voice, the little imposter syndrome voice is
Yeah.
there. But yeah.
Hey, I think we all have it, and I don't think there's any harm in it once it doesn't become crippling, because it keeps you humble and you have humility, which means you're willing to collaborate and listen to other people and kind of learn in that process. You mentioned the idea of us all having those, weaknesses and blind spots, and I think being able to look at your own work critically and reflect on what you've done and what you would do differently, something that will allow you to continue to grow and grow into this bigger film and the TV series and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well put, and yeah, that's all I aspire and aim to do. And the TV series it's about a real music venue in the 70s, so that's my bag, that's my jam, that's my, directorial. I know exactly how I want to direct that, and stuff like that. So it's all stuff of dreams, and I just have to take it, like I said, day by day, and yeah, the imposter syndrome, and the having some humility, and not acting like you know it all, or you're above anybody else, or I always say as well, though, as stressful as this industry can be and stuff like that, like, we're not saving lives, not in a direct form, and it's art and it's creative, and people who bring unnecessary drama and that side of it, I just don't understand it. I'm like, this is like a dream place to be, even though it can be really tough and gut wrenching and stuff like that. You have to remind yourself of that, because I think too many people get bogged down in the negativity of it, instead of just stopping and realizing that this is actually fucking creating art. We don't leave a lot behind on this planet, but one thing we can leave behind is the art that we create, So if you can do that and just have some impact on somebody's life, I know I'm saying not saving lives, but just have an impact on whatever that may be, like making them feel happy, scared, whatever. It's a human emotion that through your work you're invoking, So for me, that's what it's all about.
Said it brilliantly. I would like to just circle back and just row in behind you on the appreciation for Dermo Goggins, because he is a legend and incredibly kind and a wonderful mentor.
There's not many of them out there, and to have somebody at his level given the time and his energy to people, and does it from a genuine place as well, and he's super, super talented, as we know, as a director, but that man is meticulous in his prep, and I've learned from teaching the workshops with him. I'm there teaching, but I've learned so much of him as a director and his process, and his knowledge of camera movements, and how that can reflect scenes and stuff like that. It's just unparalleled with, he's so passionate about the whole industry as a whole, So yeah, he's just been a great inspiration for me as a director, definitely.
Speaking then of mentors, I suppose a lot of people who've been on the podcast talk about the importance of having them. So having really good mentors is brilliant as well, because you also learn to pay it forward. So when you were starting out in this industry, what is one thing that you wish you knew?
I suppose just earlier on in the career, not being afraid of who you truly are, and you're not masking, or you're not trying to fit a mold, you know. For me as well, I had to make an informed decision to break away from being the cool tattooed guy standing at the bar as regards an extra or a featured extra or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's a great stomping ground to learn how a set runs and stuff like that. But I talked about stereotyping, but there is a pigeonhole that you get put into that it's like, oh, this guy looks cool, but he'll be the tugs, you know, standing over there. Or they just wanted me as an extra to use my tattoos in a scene. They never would have considered me to be credible as an actor. And I still find that I still have to prove myself that just because I look like this, you know, hopefully I can bring something to the scene, and getting casting directors and directors and producers to take a risk on unconventional looks, you know, and it's rare that you find them that they can see past the headshot with the tattoos and think, well, you know, I have a rom-com that's been written for me as a protagonist from an amazing writer, which is amazing, because I'd love to do a rom-com and break down the stereotype and the stigma, you know. So it's finding these people that are willing to overlook that. So I suppose just not fighting that and not feeling like you have to fit into a mold, and just being yourself, and then just going and making your own work and showing them, because you can talk about it all day long, but actually just go, and we're visual creatures, and just go and show them. Even Reflection, my first short film, which I said was about male suicide, it's actually a horror film, but it starts off at quite, like, it seems like it's a drama. Spoiler alert. But I had casting directors and producers and people coming up to me going, "Oh my God, we never ever would have seen you as like a vulnerable character. That was like, oh my God, we never." And I'm like, well, why not? Like, I'm still a human being. I still have the same emotions, you know? So yeah, I know that's kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, but I suppose everything is a learning curve, and I'm very comfortable where I am now. And yes, there's still rejection. I'm still pushing for auditions. I'm still pushing my agents to get me in here and stuff like that. There is still that side of it, but I'm okay with it now. Whereas before, I used to let it affect me a lot. You know, I've learned to just let it go. And even for auditions and stuff, if I'm not enjoying it and I don't do a decision or a take on a character, because that's what I used to do as well. I used to do it and I'd walk away feeling like I cheated myself, because I was trying to fit into a mold rather than just delivering what I want myself. And I think that's changed my whole mindset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you pulled this next question from your workshops or something like that, but for kind of younger actors or directors, or just in general, new entrants to the industry and people thinking about, maybe I'll go there, what advice or words of wisdom would you have for those people?
Again, it's subjective as to why people want to do this. There's no right or wrong answer, and you've heard it said so many times, and like, I hate to repeat it, but if you're just doing it to get on Netflix, or for the fame of it, you know, it's that motivation is going to come short very quickly, you know, unless you're extremely lucky and right place, right time. So for me, the answer is that it's like, I've tried to quit. I've tried to fucking leave this horrible, toxic, you know, it's such a sporadic industry. You never know where you are week from week. And we were talking about this before we started chatting. So that burning desire and passion, if you actually want to turn it into a career, and that doesn't mean you want to make money off it, but turn it into a livable career. If you are not so willing to sacrifice other elements of your life to put the work that you need into it, the long-term success is, you're going to be probably disappointed. Now, some people just do it for fun and they do it as a social activity, and that's fine. But if you actually want to turn this into a career, it's not that you want to do it, if you don't need to do it. Again, I know it's really cliche and needy, but like, when I've tried to leave it, it doesn't last very long. It's normally like, you know, you have a fucking whinge and a moan and 2 days later you're back to it. But it's like, I can't not do it. I don't know if I couldn't express myself or couldn't get my creative thoughts out on the paper. I think I would go insane. I think it's the only thing that holds my life together, being an artist and a creative. So if you really want to get into it, and try and get into some good training initially, learn the fundamentals, be around positive people, create your own work, even if it's just on your iPhone, and start exploring that world of it, and just be open, but also prepare yourself that it is the long road and there's a lot of rejection. But if that burning desire keeps pulling you back in, then you know you're in the right place. I've seen so many actors that I know that have just given up after 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. And I understand it. I get it. It's fucking brutal. And they go and they have to get a job, and or like a 9 to 5 job, and look after their family. I get it. I totally get it. But for me, that burning, all consuming need to do it wasn't there. Because if it is, you find a way around it. You still do your 9 to 5 job, but you still find a way to continue your passion on. Yeah, I suppose that's just for me. It can be a great confidence tool, though, just to get in and do some training on that side of things. But just career wise, like I said, I wish I had have gone and done some proper formal training early on in my career, but I just didn't know that that's what I needed to do. So if you have that opportunity and you can do it, I'd advise doing it.
We spoke about what will be coming down the pipeline by way of directing and work that you're making. What can we see you in next? I know you're currently in Brassic 6.
Yes, yeah. And again, it's great and it's amazing. And we were speaking about this before we started as well. But it's like I'm on the bigger stuff. I'm kind of stuck in day player world, where I get called day. That's great. It's brilliant. I'm not complaining. So yeah, with the Brassic, it's a one and done, day player role, amazing. And I'm hoping that I can get back for season 7, because that's just been greenlit. So that'd be incredible. So at the moment, then, Swingbout, the boxing movie, is out in the cinemas. So I have a role in that, and I just finished that filming out in America. They actually want me to come out and shoot some more, even though I thought I was done, which is always a nice thing. That's one of the most enjoyable characters that I've ever played in that one. So that's called Farlight. So that'll be coming out. Suit Hung Tai Tung, Sao Daoshi's movie, is doing cinema run at the moment, a small role in that. So yeah, I think this year there's quite a lot that has come out from last year, which is always nice. I shot that Fran the Man movie earlier this year, so that'll be coming out early 2025. Yeah, so there's a few things happening and coming out, and then I just, mainly with the directing side, it's consuming at the moment, and with the acting side as well. Like, I mean, with the whole industry, it's 40% downturn on last year, so it's a tough time for all creatives, and that includes crew as well as everybody else, writers, directors, actors. So they say by this month it's going to start regaining, but I mean, they said that last year. So it is quiet out there for actors, and there's a lot of people getting disparaged and thrown in the towel. And I work a lot. I do one-to-one coaching for actors, and there's a lot that want to give it up, and they're doing the coaching to try and I'm trying to keep them in there, So we have to remember that as well. Even for me, it's not like the phone is ringing every day for like acting roles and stuff like that, and you never know, you just never know. Or you get on to something big or decent or whatever, and you think, oh, okay, now we're on the right path. We'll start, getting on more offers and stuff like that, and then nothing happens for a year or 2 years. It's just so sporadic. So yeah, all we can do is just keep hustling, as we say.
That's it, man. It's great that people are going to be seeing you and can see you in things that are out now. The more people see you, the more people become familiar with your work, and hopefully one thing leads on to the next. And I'm looking forward to seeing that rom-com.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Something different. But no, absolutely, yeah. And I love looking back on actors' IMDb's and seeing where they came from, and how they build up, and the day player roles to what they are now. And I love seeing that. I was rewatching Drag Me to Hell there a while ago, and Octavia Spencer walks into the scene, puts some papers down on the desk, and walks out. So she was literally like an extra in that movie, and she goes from that to winning an Oscar. You know what I mean? So I love seeing that track record, that nobody comes from nowhere. There's always they have done the work to get to where they are. There's the overnight successes are few and far between, and does happen, and nepotism and money, whatever. But I love seeing where actor, or if you're watching a really old movie and somebody that you know from Kin or whatever pops up, you're like, oh my God, that was 20 years ago. And they have one line or they don't have a line. It's like, I love seeing that. And I think we have to remember that as creatives, that we evolve and we work and work, but you have to stay in that work to then get the success later on, or whatever the definition of success is.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting and positive practice to involve yourself in, just reminding yourself that everyone has a journey.
What I was saying just before we started this, it's like we forget how far we've come along and we feel like we haven't. And I think I was saying to you before, like at one stage, my ultimate goal was to get an IMDb credit. And now, whatever, at 55 IMDb credits, but I feel like I need to get another TV credit. It's not enough. I need to keep building. But sometimes you just need to stop and be like, well, look at the journey you've taken to get to 55 IMDb credits and what's going to come next. But yeah, I think it's just stopping to acknowledge how far you've come. And a lot of the time we can only see forward and we don't appreciate that that's somebody's goal at the moment is an IMDb credit. There is some person out there that's like, this year, my goal is to get an IMDb, and you have 55 IMDb credits, but you're like, it's not enough. I need to get more. But at one stage, that was your ultimate goal, was to get one,
As you said, we spoke about this before we went into record, and I think it's so important. We don't always, as freelancers, I think, take the time or have the luxury to stop and reflect and look back, but it is important. So anyone who's listening, they should all just stop for a moment and just go and look at how far they've come, see what's behind them, and before taking that next step forward.
Absolutely. And it can be something as small as taking an acting class or taking a camera class or whatever it is, that's a stepping stone when you feel like, because I talk to a lot of actors and they feel like they're not evolving or they're not a part of the industry. And this is one thing that I do say, it's like, make sure that you do one thing every day that gets you closer to the goal that you want than it was the day before. And that can be just sending an email, watching a roundtable actors, listening to a podcast that's related to the industry, whatever that one thing is. And it sounds so small and so insignificant, but 7 things a week, 28 a month. By the end of the year, if you're doing one thing, it makes you feel like an artist and it makes you feel a part, even if there's nothing going on. It's like, that's my one thing today as a creative that I did for myself. It can be writing down an idea. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's one thing, because when we go 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks and we haven't done anything because there's no auditions, there's no jobs, there's no this, there's no that, we start feeling separate from the industry. We don't feel like a creative. But I find just that one little thing just keeps you in the artist mode, and it makes you feel a part of something, So it's one bit of advice that I like to give people and try and give myself. Make sure at least one thing every day.
I love that. And I think it's a great place to leave this episode. Baz Black, thank you very much for sharing so openly. I love that conversation. I had a blast.
Same. I mean, I hope it made sense. I hope it helps whoever in whatever regard they're listening to it. And yeah, it's like I never speak from a place of superiority, because I'm still figuring this shit out and I'm still learning every day. But I love that at the same time. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and thanks for having me on.
And that's a wrap on Baz Black. Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker's Playbook. If you're enjoying the show, please follow and rate us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have feedback, questions, or topics that you'd like me to cover on the show, please put them in the comment section on our Instagram page at the Filmmaker's Playbook Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Jason Branagan Director, and you can follow Baz on Instagram at Baz Black Piercer. Links to social media handles are in the show notes. Join me next week when I talk to director Darcia Martin.